They say intelligence wins battles. They say knowledge is power. They're wrong. Because in the real game of power, knowledge alone is never enough. Information is abundant. Everyone has access. What separates those who win from those who merely know is one thing: strategy. And strategy isn't loud. It's not about showing what you know. It's about what others don't see coming. The truly dominant man isn't the one who out-argues his opponent. He's the one whose opponent never even realizes they've been outplayed until it's far too late. You've seen him. At meetings, he speaks rarely, yet decisions orbit around him. At social events, he doesn't chase attention, yet attention finds him. Why? Because while others scramble to prove their worth, he's playing an entirely different game. In a world obsessed with visibility, with likes, with followers, with applause, most people become predictable. They reveal too much. They play too openly. And in doing so, they surrender the greatest weapon of all, the element of surprise. To outsmart anyone, you must first become unreadable, not cold, not detached, just unpredictable. Because what people can't read, they can't control. What they can't predict, they can't prepare for. And that is the first layer of true dominance. Look around. Most chase respect through volume, through status, through attention-seeking moves. But the true player? He operates below the surface, observing, calculating, letting others show their hands while keeping his own concealed. This isn't about arrogance, it's about mastery. Mastery of emotion, mastery of timing, mastery of perception. Because when the room can't read you, when no one can predict your next move, you control the entire game. Violence is loud, intelligence is silent. That's the first truth Machiavelli understood, and it's a truth most men today still haven't grasped. In the world you navigate, business, relationships, politics, life, those who shout loudest are rarely the ones who win. They expose themselves. They become targets. But the strategist? He waits, he watches, and when he strikes, it's never expected, it's never emotional, it's surgical. That is how you outsmart anyone, not through force, through unseen moves. And in this video, you'll learn exactly how. 5 Machiavellian rules. 5 tools for those who are done being predictable. 5 ways to move beyond the obvious and into true dominance. Are you ready? Let's begin. Most people think power is about presence, about making yourself seen, heard, felt. They're wrong. The first rule of dominance isn't visibility, it's invisibility. Not literal invisibility, strategic invisibility. The kind that unnerves, the kind that forces others to second-guess themselves. Silence isn't emptiness. It's a weapon. When you speak constantly, when you react instantly, when you explain yourself too often, you surrender power. Because now they know your patterns, your emotions, your weaknesses. But when you move in silence, you become a question mark no one can answer, and nothing breeds more fear than the unknown. You've seen it. In meetings, everyone arguing, talking over each other. One man sits silent, observing, not reacting. By the end of the meeting, his voice carries more weight than the 10 who spoke before him. Why? Because silence builds tension, and tension commands attention. In social dynamics, the man who doesn't need to chase validation instantly gains more respect than those who beg for it. Silence says one thing: I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to win. Understand this. Emotional reactions are predictable. Predictable players are easy to defeat. But when you master restraint, when you can hold your tongue when others are shouting, You become the variable no one can calculate. Look at history. Look at any master strategist. Did they reveal their intentions too early? Did they explain every move? Did they waste energy reacting to every slight? Never, because they understood. Noise is the tool of the insecure. Silence is the art of the powerful. Machiavelli wrote, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." But how do you build fear? Not by shouting, not by posturing, by controlling what others see, and even more, by controlling what they don't see. When you master silence, you force others into their own minds. They start projecting, overthinking, filling in the blanks with their own fears. And often, the fears they invent are worse than anything you could say. In negotiation, silence forces the other side to reveal more than they intended. In relationships, silence makes the other person chase your validation instead of the reverse. In conflict, silence destabilizes opponents faster than aggression ever will. But here's the deeper truth. Silence isn't passive. It's deliberate. You aren't silent because you have nothing to say. You're silent because every word you don't say builds leverage. Remember this. Every time you react emotionally, you hand your opponent the map to your mind. But when you master silence, you hand them nothing. And a player who reveals nothing is a player no one can beat. That's rule 1. Master the art of silence, or be mastered by those who have. Most people believe life is about truth, about reality. They think, if I'm right, I'll win. If I'm good enough, people will see it. They're wrong. In power games, truth is secondary. Perception is everything. You don't control the world by being right. You control it by controlling what people think is right. And that begins with mastering how you are perceived. Understand this. Humans don't judge based on reality. They judge based on optics, on signals, on what they think they see. Machiavelli wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, because it belongs to everybody to see you, but few to touch you." Translation: who you appear to be matters more than who you are. When you control perception, you shape outcomes before they happen. You've seen this. The man who appears confident gets the deal, even if he isn't the smartest in the room. The politician who appears strong wins votes. Even if they're not the best leader, the partner who appears emotionally stable gets more respect, even if they battle inner chaos. Why? Because perception is the battlefield long before any real fight begins. If people perceive you as competent, they defer to you. If they perceive you as weak, they test you. If they perceive you as unreadable, they fear you. Most people lose before they even start, because they surrender control of their image. They overshare. They seek approval. They try too hard to be liked. And in doing so, they become predictable, weak, easy to manipulate. The strategist plays a different game. He crafts his image deliberately. He chooses what to show and what to conceal. He lets others think they understand him, when in truth, they don't even see the full board. Control perception, and you no longer fight battles head-on, because the room has already decided how to treat you before you take your first step. Think about it. You walk into a room. Within seconds, people categorize you. Are you a threat? Are you an ally? Are you worth respecting or dismissing? And here's the secret. 80% of that judgment has nothing to do with what you say. It's how you move, how you hold space, how much or how little you reveal. In a world obsessed with constant expression, those who master restraint own the game. The man who doesn't react emotionally becomes mysterious. The man who speaks deliberately commands attention. The man who controls what others see controls what others do. This is why controlling perception is the second rule of dominance. It's not about truth, it's about advantage. It's not about being authentic, it's about being strategic. Because when people fear what they don't understand, when they hesitate in front of the unknown, when they second-guess themselves before acting, you've already won. Master this, and you don't just control the game. You control everyone playing it. Most people think power comes from direct confrontation. They believe to win, you must overpower your opponent, crush them head-on, outperform them in every battle. They're wrong. Because direct confrontation is the most dangerous, most inefficient way to win. Why? Because when you attack a man, you activate his defenses, you trigger his pride, you make him fight harder. Machiavelli understood this. He taught true power isn't in controlling people. It's in controlling the conditions around them. When you control the environment, you control behavior, without force, without resistance. Think about chess. A master player doesn't chase the king. He controls the board. He forces the king into a corner, one move at a time. The king falls, not because he was attacked directly, but because the board gave him no escape. This is the deeper game. The strategist doesn't waste energy trying to force people to change. He changes the environment until they have no choice but to adapt or fall. You've seen it. In business, the smartest negotiator doesn't argue endlessly. He shifts deadlines. He alters terms. He controls key relationships until the other side can only move on his terms. In social dynamics, the most influential man doesn't argue for status. He subtly shapes opinion. He cultivates allies. He lets others lose influence until the room naturally revolves around him. In relationships, it's the same. The person who controls attention, scarcity, and emotional tone sets the terms of engagement. The other person adapts, often without realizing. Why does this work? Because people adapt to environments automatically. It's human nature. When the environment forces a certain behavior, there's no need for direct confrontation. You've already won the deeper battle. And here's the genius of it. When you change the environment, you remain invisible. Your opponent doesn't even realize they've lost freedom of choice. They still think they're playing their game, when in fact they're playing yours. Machiavelli wrote, "He who causes another to become powerful ruins himself." Translation: never empower your enemy's position. Instead, reshape the battlefield until they stand on shifting ground. The man who controls the environment never needs to fight, because by the time others realize the game has changed, it's already too late. So remember this. Don't waste time trying to overpower people. Overpower the conditions they depend on. Shift alliances. Control access to key resources. Alter incentives. And soon, you won't need to attack anyone. They'll defeat themselves, trying to survive in a world you've quietly restructured. That's Rule 3. Manipulate the environment, not the opponent. Because when you control the board, the pieces move themselves. Most people spend their lives trying to appear stronger, more capable, more confident, more powerful. It's instinct, it's ego. But in the game of dominance, that instinct will get you killed. Why? Because when you appear strong, you trigger caution. You make enemies wary. You make them defensive. And a cautious enemy is the hardest to defeat. But when you appear weak, when you let others believe you're harmless, you disarm them completely. They lower their guard. They overextend. They expose themselves. And when the time is right, you strike. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He warned, "A wise man should always appear weak when he is strong, and strong when he is weak." This is the art of weaponized underestimation. You've seen it. In business, how often does the quiet, underestimated player suddenly dominate the market, while the flashy competitor collapses? In social dynamics, the person others dismiss often holds unseen influence and wields it when least expected. In conflict, the fighter who looks tired or injured often draws his opponent into a reckless attack, only to counter decisively. Here's why this works. Ego blinds people. Most opponents want to feel superior. When you let them think they've won, when you let them believe you're no threat, they relax. They get sloppy. And in their arrogance, they reveal far more than they should. Machiavelli taught, men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims. When you appear weak, you deceive, you bait, you lure your opponent into overconfidence. And the beauty of this tactic is simple. You aren't fighting directly. You're letting the opponent defeat themselves. Because when an enemy believes they've already won, they stop calculating. They stop preparing. And in that moment, their entire position crumbles. This is why the greatest generals in history didn't always charge head-on. They used feints. They used misdirection. They lured enemies into traps, then struck with overwhelming precision. In modern life, the same principle applies. In business, under-promise, over-deliver. Appear harmless, then dominate. In relationships, don't chase validation. Let others think they control the dynamic, while you steer it beneath the surface. In negotiation, play patient, even vulnerable, until the opponent overplays their hand. Remember this: the predictable man who shows all his strength early invites caution. But the man who limps, who apologizes, who seems fragile, invites arrogance, and arrogance blinds. That's when you strike, clean, decisive, final. Because by the time they realize their mistake, it's already too late. That's Rule 4. Appear weaker than you are. Weaponize underestimation, because the enemy you bait into overconfidence is the easiest enemy to destroy. Most people hesitate when it matters most. They fight hard, then stop short of the finish. They leave loose ends. They show mercy. They tell themselves, "I've won enough." And that hesitation is exactly what will destroy them. Understand this: a wounded enemy is far more dangerous than a defeated one. Machiavelli taught, injuries should be inflicted all at once, so that being less tasted, they offend less. Translation: if you must strike, strike fully. Because a man who is merely injured learns, evolves, seeks revenge, but a man who is utterly defeated has no strength left to fight. You've seen it. In business, the company that takes half a market then watches as a hungry competitor claws back dominance. In politics, the leader who wins an election but leaves rivals with networks and resources intact, only to be overthrown later. In relationships, the person who walks away too gracefully, leaving the other side fueled by obsession and unfinished emotional debt. Why does this happen? Because people fear being seen as ruthless. They seek to be fair, kind, even in high-stakes conflict. But the truth is brutal. Unfinished battles always return. Stronger, nastier, harder to kill. When you face an opponent, business, personal, political, ask yourself, am I prepared to finish this? Because if you aren't, don't start. A grudge half buried will dig itself back up. A threat half neutralized will evolve. Look at the masters of history. The greatest generals didn't cripple enemy forces. They annihilated them. The most powerful rulers didn't exile rivals. They dismantled their entire support networks. In modern life, the same applies. In business, don't just win the deal, win the market, lock the gates behind you. In negotiations, don't just win the concession. Remove the leverage so it can't be used against you again. In relationships, don't leave emotional ambiguity. Close the chapter fully, so no ghosts return. Machiavelli understood. Mercy is a luxury you cannot afford when stakes are real. And here's why. An enemy with hope is an enemy that sharpens. An enemy with resources is an enemy that rebuilds. An enemy with dignity is an enemy that obsesses. But an enemy who is left with nothing, no pride, no allies, no future in this arena, cannot return. And that is the goal, not cruelty, not drama, not gloating, but finality. Because true power doesn't just win battles, it ends them. Remember this: if you must strike, strike in a way that leaves no path back, no escape, no revenge, no second chances. That's Rule 5. Finish completely. Leave no threats, because a war half won is a war that will haunt you. Now you understand. Dominance isn't about being loud. It's not about being seen. It's about control. Control of yourself, control of perception, control of the environment, control of timing, control of outcomes. You've just learned 5 rules most people will never understand. Most will keep chasing validation, keep reacting emotionally, keep showing too much, keep leaving threats unfinished, and they'll wonder why they keep losing without even knowing they're in a game. But you know now. Silence isn't weakness. Underestimation is a weapon. Environment is the real battlefield, and if you strike, you finish. Now ask yourself, are you still playing at surface level while others control the game beneath? Or are you ready to move differently? Because in this world, the man who can't be read, can't be provoked, and can't be trapped is the man who wins. Without noise, without drama, without warning. Now it's your turn. Drop a comment below. Tell me, what's one moment where staying silent gave you the edge? Or one moment where you wish you had? Let's sharpen each other. Let's move differently. Because in a world of noise, the man who masters silence masters everything.